Here we are, Ben. We're live for the first time. Freedom Framework. This is the Mind Frame stream.
Yes.
With Ben and Trevor. I
I'm
would
Ben.
be Trevor. And so this is the first live stream for the Freedom Framework. We're going to be discussing so many things. We have so much in store, so much planned for this show. And it goes beyond just the stream here.
Yep. All right, Trevor. Well, I suppose we should start out. Just kind of tell us who you are.
Well, absolutely, yeah. So, my name is Trevor Tufson. I was born in Minnesota, live in Minnesota. We're live right now from northern Minnesota. And, I was born in a relatively, typical Minnesota middle-class working-collar family. And, I grew up with, holding true principles, taught, how to have a good work ethic, how to...
How old are you, Trevor?
I'm 20 years old. Yes, I should say.
I'll interview you. All right.
Okay,
All right?
sure. Yeah.
What are you doing right now? How's your life?
Well, my life's
College?
good. I'm currently enrolled at University of Minnesota Duluth. I study management information systems. It's at the business school here. I love what I study. It's very interesting. That's kind of what has actually implored me to get into the internet world, and also try to use this knowledge of the internet, use this knowledge of computers to try to create something for others, try to push a message out there. And the message that I want to get out, and I think that we obviously agree on, it's the message of freedom. It's the message that we have principles, we have values, and we want to share those with others and explore them and critique them and try to create a framework for our lives, and to try to help other people create frameworks for their own lives. One that is compatible with freedom.
You're
with
right.
The principles of America.
I think that as we're going here, we're just getting started out. We're gonna share what has helped us on our journey to free ourselves, our minds, all the things that we've done. I think that a lot. This is gonna be kind of like a mutual process of maturation that we're gonna engage in here. We want to grow ourselves and hopefully the audience with us. So I think that one of the best ways that we can do that is by sharing ideas and doing research. And so one of the things that we'll be doing on the Freedom Framework podcast is showing links, showing Google. We're going to be showing the information live in real time so that people can get the information, not think they're getting screwed. We're not, we're here, we're just live, we're teleprompter free. This is going to be a skill that we're going to have to develop as we go.
Yep.
I think that it's the most genuine way to talk, because if we are, pre-scripted, pre-planned, we are, thinking, in our heads all the time, kind of in my head right now, but if we keep doing that, we keep, practicing our ability to kind of just speak off the cuff and speak off of what we know, I think we're going to be able to, be more truthful and more honest.
Absolutely.
So I'm Ben. I already kind of introduced myself. I'm 20 years old. I'm currently a computer science student at Regis University. I am really, really fascinated with the way and I'm really, really fascinated where technology is going. One of the biggest interests and one of the reasons I chose my major is because I'm really, really confident in what cryptocurrency can do for not only everybody's life, but also just society in general. The amount of trust that we can now have, because we can have a distributed system where we don't have to rely on a third party to be able to, kind of mediate the discourse that we engage in as individuals. So now I can just send money to Trevor, and I don't have to rely on a bank, or I don't have to rely on the government to, send information, send files, send money, pretty much anything that you could imagine. So I guess now we should transition into what the freedom framework is. So, Trevor, why don't you give me your general synopsis of what we're doing here?
Yeah. So the beautiful thing about this is that we both come at it at two different angles, right? The whole point of the freedom framework is to have an individual mindset where each individual has dispersed distributed power in your ideas, in your interactions, and whatever you're interacting, at least in the internet world to start, is free, is open sourced. It's up to you to decide the breadth and the sort of how far you get into it, because the freedom framework, it's like, well, it's very arbitrary. It's very you can't necessarily, it's not something tangible. It's something that exists, in your mind and in your actions. And so when we say the word, it kind of has two facets, right? It's like freedom and framework. And so it's like, well, it almost seems like an oxymoron, but it's not. Because in order for freedom to exist, you need to have a sort of you need some sort of principle on which to act on that framework. And so, yeah.
Do you think that? Our whole kind of intention behind the freedom framework was to create a platform. And eventually we're going to expand on this. We'll have a website. We're going to create hopefully some blockchain applications with this. But we want a platform where people can freely share ideas, censorship free, without any need for a third party. So Google or YouTube will take 60% of your funds. When you post a video or something like that, well, they'll take 60% from the advertisers. So what we want to do is kind of try to find a way to work around that, where we can have a bunch of people making content and engaging with their audience in a very free and open way, peer to peer. So I guess that's kind of the bigger picture for what we want for the freedom framework. So within the freedom framework, what we're doing right now is not the freedom framework. What we're doing right now is the Mind Frame podcast. So this is just kind of the Kickstarter for what we're going to do or what our vision is, because we have to, grow ourselves. We have to be able to, learn how to talk, off the cuff. So this is going to be a learning experience.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a learning experience for us. We're right now is this is why we create it. It's we can't just be complacent, right? We just need to dive in. We need to get dirty, and we need to start, speaking ideas, reaching out to those around the country, but also around the world, because we hold our American and sort of our historical principles to our to the highest esteem, at least in our own mind, but we're still open to the rest of the world. We're still interacting with the world. That's the reason why we need a decentralized, individualist oriented sort of social, cultural, political system, because we want to be able to
proper framework.
You need a proper framework in order to make sure you know your boundaries and know the direction where you're going. Mm-hmm. And so the beautiful thing is the mind frame here is to brainstorm ideas. It's to explore ideas, and it's also to sort of bring in all of the great sort of resources that that the internet has to offer. And the greatest resource that the internet has to offer is just direct communication with other individuals around the country and around the world. And so we just cannot we sort of, at least in our generation, we get we're so connected that we're disconnected from our own local community. We get so connected into our
one thing that
social media and so many other things that we almost disconnect ourselves from what truly matters, and that's the freedom that exists in our communities, the sort of free enterprise that lets anybody who wants to do something and create something better, they can.
Let's go back to that whole topic about social media. That's kind of been something that has come up into controversy lately with Facebook getting caught with their I know all the mainstream are Cambridge Analytica, and they use this to Trump for data mining so that they could win voters over in the 2016 election. But it's okay, well, data mining's a hell of a lot bigger than Cambridge Analytica. Okay, Facebook sells their data to so many different, organizations that have, that use this technology.
Who knows how many,
right? And so one of the biggest issues is privacy. And we're getting in, and this is why I think cryptocurrency can really transform, the whole paradigm that we're in right now. Because now we have these centralized systems like Facebook with their centralized servers, and they're collecting all of our data, and they can sell it. Because when you click that little accept button after you're supposed to read, the terms and services, they take a lot of your, privacy away. And honestly,
they take ownership of a part of you almost. Like it's.
But the thing is, what's the tricky part is that we're clicking accept, right? But the problem is we're not reading the terms of the service. Right? I mean, if you really look at it, you can see all of these freaking, things that they can do to this. They can look through your phone. They can, sell all your data. They can do all of this stuff, and we aren't even aware of it. So one thing that blockchain technology will be able to do is we'll create kind of a pseudo-anonymous system where we can get data from users but not unmask the identity of people. Obviously, Bitcoin, they have, people have been able to track people down on Bitcoin. But there are other cryptocurrencies that are coming about, like Monero, which is a completely, private network. Ethereum is updating its system right now using Zcash. It's going to be going more private. So we're going to be able to have this system where we can store all this mass amount of data. It'll be available to the public, but instead of this is Ben, it'll be this is 0x531255435. And it's all the data will be associated with that address, and we'll be able to get data and then market to that address, but we won't know who it is, which is going to be huge, I think. So,
it has to do with sovereignty and control over your own directed how you direct yourself in the economic world. Like the one thing about this country is that it's very easy to sort of section and I guess take the country as a whole, the economy as a whole, and just break it up into sections and say, okay, this section operates with this section in a certain way. If you're in healthcare, you can only do this, this, and this. You have to abide by all these plethora of books and books and books of regulations, and there's no sort of interoperability between all these different industries, and so they have to create so many different programs and different financial regulations, different financial rules that it's not you. It doesn't matter who you are, you can't understand it.
So Trevor,
unless you study it for years.
So Trevor, why do you think that privacy is important, and what do you think social media is doing, and what potential negative effects could this infringement on our privacy have?
Well, really, I mean, privacy. Obviously, it has to do with everybody. You could ask somebody who's very active on social media. It's like, do you care about your privacy? Yeah, I know we don't care. What do I have to hide, right? I don't have anything to hide. I'm not doing anything wrong. But it's like, well, hold on a minute. If you're not doing anything wrong, why should somebody? Why should they be able to see what you're doing? Why should they be able to pull the curtain around? That you have the ability to create for yourself away from you without your permission. Why is it that anybody can peer into every action and thing you do without your permission? It's like, privacy is important because it's your sovereignty as an individual. It's what makes you you. And I think if other companies are going to take that away from you and also then turn to profit from it, then where does we come into that? Why can't we sell our information to others? So that's one thing I learned about the free decentralization in crypto is a lot of these sort of, they give you value just for being a part of the network, just for being part of their new system. They'll give you a coin, or like they have their ICOs or whatever. So they actually give you a stake in their own network, in their own system.
It's a very democratic system.
Yeah, and it gives you a say in what is being, I guess, discovered, or what is being manipulated, what is being changed. It's like you have a say.
It's like you'll no longer become the product. See, on Facebook, you're the product. You're how they make their money. They don't make money, they make some money because of advertising, obviously, but most of their money comes from you, right? Well, and I suppose that does have to do with advertising because they data mine you, they can figure out where you were, they can look at your camera, they can see. I remember one time my mom made a live video and she, was like recording me, and without her even tagging me, Facebook just recognized who I was. And we have all of these, look, Snapchat. Okay, all of these Snapchat filters. How absurd is that? We have all these kids, that are probably, anywhere from 6 to, 18 years old on their phones, clicking their face, getting a complete, getting a complete facial recognition software. I mean, all of that goes to a server. I mean, all that's stored somewhere. It's not going to just disappear. They're only telling you that it's safe. What if Snapchat gets hacked? Oh, by the way, which it has. So it's not like, you're safe. If the FBI or the CIA or, whoever has nefarious intentions wants to figure out where you are, it's as simple as them getting in a few cameras and using that data from that facial recognition software, to be able to identify you and figure out where you are. So this is like Big Brother 2.0, like 1984. We're going to be, and it's only going to get worse.
Yeah, exactly. And it's all about the fact that it's just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It's like, yeah, at a certain level, it's like, whatever, they're doing what they're doing. Yeah, they're a private company. They can do what they want with their own data. If somebody agrees to their services, then, that's them agreeing to their services. They are a private institution. They have the right to do that. But once they get so big, once these companies get so big and it becomes so socially dominant, it's time for us to start standing up for what we are using. It's like, yeah, it's a private institution, but if everybody's using it and refusing to get away from it, it's like, then are we willingly actually using these services? It's like, it's hard to just say, if it's completely public, then nobody has anything to hide. Then we'll be, you can have a more free and open dialogue because nobody's hiding anything. And it's like, well, it still matters on the means on which you share your own information. It still matters on how people are sort of extracting data and who you are from you. It's like, yeah, we're putting ourselves out there live, but that's just because we have a cause, because this is what we want to do. We want to be able to change hearts or change minds to be more open to discussion, be more open to dialogue.
And this kind of comes back to our vision with the Freedom Framework. All right, so with the Freedom Framework, we want to, share ideas. We want to give people, information. We want to tell them about what's going on. We want to provide the means by which people can free themselves. Mm-hmm. They can free themselves from themselves. I mean, that's one of the biggest things. Like, a lot of people think they're oppressed. A lot of people think that they are, just beaten down by the man, just suffering. Hey man,
we're all oppressed.
You're the man. Guess what? You're really the man because you're the person that's stopping yourself from doing anything. I mean, if you really think about it, like the way that our thoughts work, the way that we our, I guess, reality tunnels, for lack of a better term, the way that we close ourselves in with these beliefs and these ideas, it really limits the way that we see the world. So, like, when we have a conceptualization of something, like, let's say I'm a liberal Democrat, okay, just to kind of, not just to see if I can provoke some people, right? I think that, I'm virtuous. I think that I'm a good person. I think that I care about,
you don't
people.
Judge other people's views.
Like,
you don't discriminate.
You think you do that, but how do you know what's good for other people? I mean, honestly, how can you just go up and say, oh, well, welfare is good? Well, have you ever heard of, do you know the guy who created welfare? Lyndon B. Johnson? Why don't you go on whitehouse.gov, look up, speaking of which, we should do that, whitehouse.gov.
You want to search that?
Yeah, I'll go whitehouse.gov. Yeah, Lyndon B. Johnson. Look at the JFK files and see what the war on poverty was. When Lyndon B. Johnson created the War on Poverty, which is really America's first social welfare program, like one of the bigger ones. Obviously, you have Social Security and all of those things, but whitehouse.gov. I'm going to search that up. Trevor, why don't you take over for a second?
Yeah. So the biggest thing is that, you know, if we're going to... Here, what's the password on that screen share quick?
Okay.
No, just read it. You don't have to say it.
Yeah, I'll just put that up there. Sweet. Okay, yeah, just switch back.
Just read it. You don't have to say it.
Yeah, I'll just put that up there. Sweet. Okay, yeah, just switch back.
Read it. You don't have to say it.
Yeah, I'll just put that up there. Oh, what is that? Sweet. Okay, yeah, just switch back.
Read it. You don't have to say it.
Yeah, I'll just put that up there. There you go. Okay, that'll work.
Should work.
Yeah, so take over, Trevor. I'm just doing this. You can.
Yeah, we're just gonna make sure we're getting. All right, yeah. So pull that up, and I'll shoot it over to the screen share there for you and see. Right.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to find the JFK files.
Yep. So it's on your screen right now. So I think.
We're talking about liberals, you know.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be able to talk about both sides. Like, obviously, we're gonna have criticisms on both sides, like, you know, but we can't be nuanced, right? You know, like I feel like the biggest thing is, like, if we're gonna be nuanced about, you know what side we agree with, what side we disagree with, then we have to be able to discuss and, you know, interpret the sort of subjective perspectives that people are coming into.
Who
right?
makes this impossible?
So it's like, we share a political, the same political atmosphere, and it's like, yeah, we can choose a side, but you don't always have to choose a side. If you're criticizing one side, it doesn't automatically identify you with everything on the other side. That's the thing about, you know, identity politics, I say. So yeah, we'll pull up the screen viewer.
All right, so now, like,
LBJ.
so I'm a liberal. I care about people. Okay. You know, I think social welfare is a good thing. And now let's look at one of the creators of social welfare. Now, of course, we don't know if what this is saying is true, but this is from the National Archives. This is, you know, a public record. This was released by Trump just a few months ago. This is the JFK files. All right. Now, and if we look at this, we can see the article. We'll just start from the top. Reference is made to an article on the investigation of the assassination of President Kennedy in the 3/15/64 issue of The Counselor, received on 4/13/64, which identifies itself as having been published by the Citizens Council of Louisiana, Inc. for Americans everywhere. The article, with a date line of New Orleans, claims that the Counselor was in New Orleans to make a fresh search into the assassination matter at the request of the Dallas District Attorney's Office. In addition, the article claims that the Dallas District Attorney's Office enlisted the Counselor to check reports that Oswald and Rubenstein, apparently Jack Ruby, convicted killer of Oswald, were connected in employment matters. The article claims that in the interviewing personnel, directors and employment agents, officials, the Counselor learned that agents from different government bureaus have taken key documents concerning Oswald and have not coordinated their investigative efforts. This Counselor claims that the biggest feud in this connection exists between Douglas Dillon's Treasury agents and Bobby Kennedy's FBI. The article also states that the more people are working to cover up the facts than are trying to sincerely unmask the assassination plot. So let's just stop there for a second before we get to the really good stuff. I think that, you know, like if you look at the JFK files, you really do see, you know, just the amount of disinformation that is out there, and the amount of people that are just, you know, constantly covering themselves up in order to get away with just the most nefarious and evil things that you could possibly imagine. Now, of course, we don't know, like, how much of this is true, but these are documents, and they were concealed by the CIA, and one would ask, why? Exactly. Why were these concealed by the CIA? Why were these seemed so important? So, and then it goes on to say,
regardless of what side of the conspiracy you side on, whether it's like, oh, there's no way, you know, there's more than one shooter, oh, there's, you know, oh, Oswald did it, or it's like, or Oswald was the patsy. It's like, there's already so much diversity in the conspiracy that exists that it's like, why would they conceal some information? It's like, you know, if they already knew there was going to be sort of this uncertain atmosphere,
so you want to switch back to the
camera. Then like why is it that they had to hide anything? You know, why not be completely transparent with the public? And it's because, you know, they had an agenda. They must have had an agenda. they must have had some sort of concerted effort on what they want to control information. And like, this is why, you know, what was there, probably 6 different agencies or 6 different departments of whoever knows was involved in just this small little factoid. It's like...
Yeah. So let's get to the goodies. Let's switch back to the screen here.
Sure.
Now this is the good part. So I'm a liberal. I care about people. I care about social welfare. Okay, and now we're going to look at one of the guys who, you know, literally founded the welfare state. He started the war on poverty, and he was the one who took office in the presidency after Kennedy was assassinated. So we have Ned Touchstone, editor of the Council, has been identified by a confidential informant, number 1223R, as a member of the original Knights of the Ku Klux Klan. The source advised in December 1963 that Touchstone claimed that the Klan had documented proof that the President Johnson was formerly a member of the Klan in Texas during the early days of his political career. Wow. Now, you mean, okay, let's look at that. So, obviously, you know, America has done some bad things. You know, everybody has, right? You know, we had slavery, we had Jim Crow, we had, you know, alcohol prohibition, we had, you know, anti-woman suffrage movements. People did not want women to vote. People did not want blacks to vote. People did not want blacks to have any rights.
It's conservative. It's conservatism taken to its extreme end.
I wouldn't even say that, because if you look back in history, the liberal left, which is Lyndon B. Johnson, all right, the liberal left in the 60s, you know, they were the ones who were pro-Jim Crow. They were fighting against the Republicans who were actually, you know, trying to be pro-black rights. And here you have Lyndon B. Johnson, the spearhead of it all, creating a social welfare program to, in my opinion, I don't know this for certain, I think that he was doing this more than likely to put certain groups of people into perpetual dependency upon the government. So, you know, I always like to use this kind of like analogy. You know, why do they put "Don't feed the animal" signs out into state parks?
Yeah.
Interesting. Really think about it. Well, the reason is because during the summertime when there's a whole bunch of visitors, all the visitors feed the animals. All right? But then winter comes along, and no more visitors. And what do the animals keep doing?
There's no feeding hand.
They keep going back to the place where they got the food. And what happens? Eventually they keep going back, and they keep going back, and guess what? No one's there, and they die. Okay? They become dependent, and animals die. I'm not saying they were animals, but realistically, we've been animals a hell of a lot longer than we have been humans. So, you know,
if we're taking strictly an evolutionary perspective, like we've been animals much longer than we've been rational human beings. Like it's just you know, it's just fact.
So let's just put things together. We have a guy who, you know, might have been a member of the KKK. He certainly said some edgy things. He certainly was not, you know, certainly was pro Jim Crow. So we have a guy who's supposedly a racist, okay, creating a dependency program focused towards minority groups in the inner cities. All right, the war on poverty. Okay, look at who, you know, and historically has been in the lower echelons of the you know, economic class. All right, it's blacks, you know, it's Hispanics, it's the Irish back then. I mean, people would move in, right? Immigrants. They don't start out so great. They have to establish themselves.
First generation immigrants.
And you know, the blacks were oppressed. I mean, there's no doubt about that. I mean, they were enslaved. You know, Jim Crow. It took a while for us to get, you know, our politics figured out so that everybody has equal rights. So what do? And, you know, I don't know if this is true, but I remember there was a quote that I heard from somewhere. It was that Lyndon B. Johnson said he would have the N-words voting Democratic for the next 200 years. Okay? So,
the intent matters, and that's the point. It's like, the intent matters when these new, just ginormous new social policies or economic policies are instituted. Because it's like they have, you know, they try to use this sort of Saul Alinsky justification. It's like, well, the ends, they justify the means, or, you know, what have you. It's like, you know what? I think the means matter. And the reason is because if these social programs, it's not like they just decided to do this, like, oh, what if we just give out everything? They do extensive research into this stuff. They have so much resources, so much secret government research that they know so much about, I would say the psychology of, the masses per se. There's so many different freaking different departments in our government that work in secret that is entirely dedicated to studying behavior and psychology of their population.
Yeah, and we're getting pretty deep here. So, getting on to rewind this back, and we need to show them some more proof. So, I don't know if any of you have heard of MK Ultra. Okay, MK Ultra was a CIA program. Okay, that was focused on mind control. Now, look, we're all humans. Okay, we all have our flaws. Every single one of us, me included, of course. I mean, I think I have more flaws than the average man. I have to, fight every single day to try to get myself out of bed because I'm pretty lazy. So, it's not exactly easy to, force yourself to do anything. And maybe it's not even about forcing. But the point is that there are these systems in place, and there has always been people who are smarter than us. There have been people who have been in power, and they want to maintain their power. So what do? Well, they use science, they use logic, they use reason, they try all these ways to figure out how to control us. So, for example, you just have the welfare state. I mean, one of the laws of power, if you've ever read the book, the 48 Laws of Power, Robert Greene, keep people dependent on you. Okay? If you want people to do what you want, you have to keep them dependent on you. All right? If you're at a zoo and you want to make sure, or if you're training your dog, I mean, I'm not calling humans animals, I'm not calling anyone animals here, okay? But look at reality for a second and think about how long we have actually been intelligent. It's not been very much time in the grand scheme of the universe, okay? If you're serious about science and you're serious about evolution, look at yourself like you're a freaking stupid animal. Because guess what? You are. Okay, I know. But we're pretty smart. We've made a lot of things.
It takes a lot of effort and a lot of time to try to somewhat convince yourself that you're intelligent. Think of it. I've been trying to read books for 20 years. I've gone to all these, these community organized schools, public school. I'm in public university right now, and I still feel like I don't know that much. And so the only way to think is you have to speak. And you have to speak in a platform and an atmosphere on which you're not going to be persecuted for that speech. Why do you think we've come up with the First Amendment? Why was that the first thing that came to mind to our founders? It's because in order to speak, in order to think, you need to be able to speak freely and explore these ideas. And yeah, you have to risk being offensive too. And that's the point. It's you will say things that will offend people. But you know what? That's how you explore ideas, and we can't just throw things in the past. It's oh, that's already been settled. Oh, this issue's already been settled, so now we can move on. But no, that is the sort of diversion tactic that the elites prey on. They're just oh, this issue is settled, so throw it behind us. Mm-hmm. It's no, you have to keep in mind history. You have to keep in mind the fundamental principles that exist in our society. It's you can't. It's yeah, maybe we'll be up here and we're talking about freedom framework and we're talking about all this, conspiracy and sort of, very sort of deep, sort of conspiratorial talk. It's there's still ideas. It's still just skepticism. Right? It's still,
we don't actually know anything for certain. We've established this. We're all, me and Trevor are, we've decided that we are extremely ignorant. Okay. We're only 20 years old, right? We don't have that much life experience, but, we're trying to gain life experience. We're trying to improve ourselves. We're using the things that we've learned in order to help people improve themselves. So, to say that, this is one thing that I find kind of infuriating sometimes is that, people think that, They judge you based off of what you look like, how old you are, male, female, black, white, blah, 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 blah. It's the whole point of engaging in discourse with someone is to get something from them that you don't know. You have to be willing to engage with someone and, have the realization that they probably know something that you don't. And if you don't do that, you're just going to be shut off to all of the possible information that could improve you as well as the person that you're talking to. So we have to be willing to look back past all of these image and these conceptualizations that we've made about groups of people and really talk about genuine ideas, right? So, you know,
out of all of it, it's like, you know, you have to be willing to also speak in their shoes, in the sort of, you know, the elite class that does rule our country. It's like, well, now you're just getting into, you know, New World Order controls everything, or
okay.
or all these big, you know, there's big politicians. You know, why do you have to worry about that? That doesn't affect you. It doesn't affect your emotion. You know, why do you have to think?
They think they are.
about you know that? It's like, because they are controlling your behavior. They are controlling
to a certain extent, right?
your emotions by the devices that they try to affix you to, and it's through social conditioning.
So
it's
let's
through,
switch to
the social.
This is MKL. This is just an example of what he's talking about.
Oh yeah, sure.
For, you know, this is what they do. Okay, this was 60 years ago. I guarantee that technology is a hell of a lot more advanced now. Okay, so here we have Project MK Ultra, also called the CIA Mind Control Program. It's a code name given to a program of experiments on human subjects that were designed by and undertaken by the United States Central Intelligence Agency, and which were illegal at times. Experiments on humans were intended to identify and develop drugs and procedures to be used in interrogations in order to weaken the individual and force confessions through mind control. The project was organized through the Office of Scientific Intelligence of the CIA and coordinated with the U.S. Army Biological Warfare Laboratories. Whoa! Okay.
Biological warfare.
Wow. All right. So, what do you know? Hypnosis, LSD, they're using all of these drugs to control you and brainwash you and all kinds of crazy, crazy things. Okay, look, we're not saying that, you know, even what they were doing is bad. We don't know. We weren't there. We're just asking questions. We're looking at the information that is available to us. So, I think, you know, just off of knowing this, it's like, okay, we can't trust our government. I don't think we can.
Yeah, I mean, why would you? Why would you respect your government, or why would you trust your government? Like, it's like, I don't think it's a question of, you know, should we trust the government? It's like, why would you? And it's like, you know, and I'm not saying anything with that statement either. I'm just saying, you know, you have to. It's a conviction to yourself and why you trust the government. It has nothing to do with you know, the utility or the sort of, you know, community sort of establishment that a government makes. It's like, it has to do entirely with your conviction and, you know, and how you want to live your life, because everything is, you convince yourself of things. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not that, you know, the reason why we agree that something, you know, why we go, you know, that's a notebook or that's a pen, is because we agree that it's a notebook or a pen. It's not that it necessarily is. It's just, that's what, you know, we agree that, you know,
that's
we have a pen in our hand,
right?
And, you know, that we can write things with it.
It's our
like,
semantics.
Yeah, exactly. It's the semantics in which we create around it. And so, you know, how does that apply to government? Well, I would say, you know, we call it government because we agree, okay, there's certain things that us as individuals can't do ourselves, and that if we consolidate certain resources and power into this, you know, sort of abstracted, arbitrary institution, that it will solve those problems for us, and that we don't have to be responsible for them anymore, because now we've attributed that responsibility, that sort of delegation to this government. And it's like, okay, how well is that working? You know,
yeah.
what institutions cause the most mass murder? What causes the most suffering? It's like,
look at history.
Look at the 20th century. Like, anytime we sort of did away with personal responsibility and gave into a sort of collective commune, a collective sort of mindset where, you know, and the reason why, well, to make a distinction here between, you know, nationalism and patriotism, right? It's like, I used to think, I'm an American, I'm a nationalist for my country. I love my country and all this stuff. It's like, well, the thing is, we patriots in America, it seems to be very distinct from other forms of nationalism, at least in the sort of macro geopolitical world, because if you look at the results of nationalism in Europe, in Asia, they've all been just horrendously violent. Yeah. Like it's almost hard to believe, and it's like, yeah, we had the Civil War, but like, why, obviously there's many reasons why we fought the Civil War, but it's very clear and why, the Union won, and it's because of, holding the individual freedom and sovereignty to be, the highest accord. You know what I mean? It's like, people took a step back. It's like, wait a minute. There's people in our society that, that all of their movements and their sovereignty is completely stripped from them. Why do we have a constitution that provides all these different rights if it doesn't apply to everyone in this land?
It's a framework for freedom.
Absolutely. And so finally people were like, no, that's wrong. Let's do something about it. And what did it do? It caused massive havoc. It caused polarity. It split people up, because anytime you look toward anytime you extract, the individual and put it subservient to some arbitrary, false, I guess, or not even false, sorry, arbitrary institution, and attribute that as being more important than the people, I just don't think you don't have a framework for freedom. You don't have
freedom,
personal responsibility anymore. And, that's, so you can't put your country, it's like, you can't necessarily put your country before yourself all the time, unless you're agreeing to it, and it's to accomplish something. So if you take a look at, like, let's say a soldier, for example, a soldier agrees to put their country before themselves, and it's because they have been convinced, or they convince themselves, that what they're doing is for a bigger cause, right? It's to fight for freedom. It's to defend freedom. It's to sort of to be that front wall between chaos and order.
I think that's an important distinction, because you look at nationalism and they're like, oh, Nazis, right? The Nazis were nationalists, okay? But let's look back to where America was founded. What's a patriot in American terms? Like, a patriot in Nazi Germany in 1930 was somebody who supported nationalism, somebody who was, pro-Nazi, pro-government, whatever their ideology was. In America, patriotism, nationalism, is founded on the principles of individual sovereignty, just like Trevor said. It's about standing up to authority. It's about questioning. It's about being intelligent. It's about making informed decisions, not based off of whatever pathology and whatever ideology you supposedly assign to yourself, whether you're a Christian or you're a Muslim or you're a Democrat or you're a Republican. It's about the individual. Okay, you add this label onto yourself, this broad generalization, and you just stripped away your ability to differ from whatever the group has decided is right. Okay, so you have all these people that, go into society, go into politics, and they're like, oh, I'm a Democrat. And then they're like, oh, then that means I also have to support abortion. That means I also have to support welfare. That means I also have to support, spying on the Trump campaign. We'll get into that later. But I think we should get off this topic, and I think we should go now down to, since we're talking about individual sovereignty, the things that allow you as an individual to free yourself. Okay, so me and Trevor have been practicing this thing called the Wim Hof method. Now, man, let me tell you, this really gives you a sense of control. This isn't about the government. This isn't about other people. This is about you and your connection with what you truly are. So you go into this. Wim Hof, he's this guy. He has like 26 world records or something like that. Goes in. He's climbed up Mount Everest. Not all the way, but most of the way, barefoot, nothing but shorts. He holds the world record for being submerged in ice. He has swam like 70 or so meters underneath Arctic sea ice. Almost died one time. Had his eye frozen off. And so, after seeing this, me and Trevor were like, maybe this is a good idea. We should probably do this. Well, so we started this method. actually have a video of us, and we can take a short break here. We have a video of us doing this method, and well, this is just the cold.
Well, I'd like to talk about it too. It's like the reason why we say it frees you is because you get so accustomed to comforts and pleasure that it becomes a vice on how every day works. Because as soon as you're waking up, you're not counting your blessings. You're trying to expand those blessings into the next day. And it's like, well, that is important, right? You need to expand every aspect of your life, no matter what it is. You need to every day you should be looking to expand yourself. But like, if every day you're just waking up and it's like, oh fuck, I gotta fill my stomach with food, or I gotta take a shower, wash all this grime off me so I look nice, or how I gotta get ready for how I put myself into society. It's like, those are important. Of course I do that every morning as well. But like, it becomes a routine that isn't for the strength of my individuality. It's more of a strength for my image, the sort of weird sort of ego that I want to push out into the world. And so like, part of the of explaining it is because you have to learn how to look into yourself and not be frightened, not be too lonely, not to be too sort of distracted from what is actually happening in yourself. The actual physical and physiological movements that has happened every day without you even thinking.
About self-awareness.
All these instincts in the sort of autonomic or what is it, the parasympathetic that you tap into?
Autonomic and parasympathetic are the two big ones that you can actually learn to hack using this method.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's like you just take a while, you step back, and you just sort of you meditate.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, now you're just you're just kind of a voodoo. You're kind of whatever. But it's like,
let me kind of get into what it is. So when we talk about autonomic and parasympathetic. So basically what you're able to do. So you start out, you're doing deep breath until you get really oxygenated. You do that about 30 times. Okay, and after about the 30th breath, you take a deep breath in. When you exhale all the way. And what you do is you sit there with no air in the lungs. And you go as long as you can. Yeah. What this does is it basically, builds your kind of resistance. And what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to pay attention to the way you feel. Now, this lack of this breathing, so it's like, since you did all the breathing, the oxygen's already stored up in your blood, so it's not like you're actually losing any, you're not killing your brain cells or anything because you're already charged up. Your alkalinity, the pH level of your blood actually went up. I think it can go up to like something like 8 last time. Well, not 8. I think it was like 7.5 or something like that. I think the average alkalinity is 6. You can like Google that.
Yeah,
but,
I'm gonna look at.
But it does anyways. So basically, you can make your body more alkaline. That's because you're exhaling so much carbon dioxide out of your system and bombarding yourself with oxygen. Okay, and so then you hold, then you hold your breath. And with no air in the lungs. So what happens is that your body actually starts producing carbon dioxide, and it stores it in your lungs. Now, you might feel the urge to breathe, but that's not actually you losing oxygen. Your lungs and your Labrador brain, for lack of a better term, your mammalian brain.
You're lifting it between 7.3 and 7.7 pH.
Oh, okay, yeah. So around there. Yeah, so basically the thing that makes you want to breathe, when you feel like you want to breathe, that's not activated by a lack of oxygen, but rather it's activated by amount of carbon dioxide in your lungs, and it's triggered by that. So you actually might feel the need to breathe, but you don't actually have to. And what this allows you to do is learn how your body feels when you trigger something like an adrenaline response, okay? And the more you do this, the more you watch yourself, the more you visualize and see, how your body is reacting to what you're doing, you actually can gain the ability to control your adrenal response. This is actually all scientific. Why don't you pull up Wim Hof?
Well, I'll shoot it over to your screen.
Yeah. There. So Wim Hof, there's a Wim Hof scientific paper Still kind of figuring out. But anyways, like all of this is like in science. We have we got to find some peer-reviewed. Here we go. Voluntary action of the sympathetic nervous system. Interesting. All right, yeah. So excessive or persistent pro-inflammatory cytokine production plays a central role in autoimmune disease acute activation of the sympathetic nervous system. This is kind of, I don't even know what most of that means. But,
And we're not scientists.
yeah, we're not scientists here, okay? We're just going off of what's on the internet. I mean,
Literally.
okay, but essentially it allows you to, learn to control your calmness, okay? Because your body triggers this adrenal response as a result of the CO2 being bombarded into your lungs. And because of this, you're able to figure out how to calm yourself down, right? Now, that's a really freaking good thing to have, I think. And that's just one of the benefits that this has.
It also sort of resets your mindset. Like sometimes I wake up and my mind's racing, right? And I'm just holy, like, why is it that, I'm, all of a sudden just racing thought, I got to do this, I got to turn this in, I got to take this test, I got to head to work or I have to, I got to do grocery shopping and it's like, well, just, that's part of life, obviously. But like, if you're in the morning and that's racing through your head, it's like, no, you got to slow down. You got to take it one step at a time here. Like,
speaking of slowing down,
you take a second, stand back, breathe, make sure your blood is oxygenated. Like sometimes, like, you wake up, you're exhausted, like
groggy.
You're groggy. Your body's like in this sort of, it is in this sleep state, and it's it takes a while, to get it to start it up. But like, if you're wanting to be efficient, you're trying to be successful. Like, you need to use every minute of your day.
So let me go back to the method, because I didn't explain it fully. So after you do the exhale and you go as long as you can, it's good to like keep time. Like, you can actually see that your time will increase as you do this. And then after you do the exhale and you've held your breath, you take a deep breath in and hold it for about 15 seconds. Now, this feels really good. I mean, you'll start to feel like luminous, light and tingly. Some of your body will even start like fidgeting or twitching. It's crazy. Like, you wouldn't even believe, like, it's a more spiritual kind of experience than you'd think, but you don't have to get all like voodoo or whatever. You can just see it as, neurons firing in your brain, and you're just visualizing that. So you do that, and then you do that about 3 times, okay? So the 30 deep breaths, exhale, inhale after, hold it for 15 seconds, and you repeat that cycle, 3-4 times, however much you want to do it. The more you do it, the more, deep you get. And then, so after that, you do about 30 more breaths, and then you exhale completely or inhale completely and do as many push-ups as you can. And let me tell you, after you do that breathing technique, you will be able to do so many freaking push-ups. Like, it's ridiculous. I can get up to like 50 now with no breath in my lungs. I started off, I could do about 20. Now I can do about 50. And that doesn't even seem possible. Like, it's ridiculous. And it feels great. And after you do it, you're kind of like, whoa, you're all like,
and then you just like go back and you just sit there and you just witness how you feel. And like, there's just so much going on, and you just begin to understand your body.
Exactly.
And your body, and it's like you feel just like, of course this sounds very cliche, but like the oneness, I guess, is like the term. You feel just like your body is like, it's you. It's like, it's not somebody else. There's not, there's no pain. There's no freaking, like some people have, or when you wake up, you can have tingly feet, if you're not eating properly, you don't have the right circulatory system because of all the shitty food that you've been eating, shit gets congested. It's like, it just clears you out. It dilates your blood vessels, and, sorry, not dilates, dilate and constrict. Right. Dilate your blood vessels. And so you're just open, and then right after that, of course, then you just you can do the stretches.
Yes, you do the stretch. And that's important. You mentioned the circulatory system. When you stretch, you're stretching your muscles and your muscle fiber out, and it makes it so that your body can grow more capillaries, so you can have more efficient nutrient distribution with your circulatory system. And it's great because you can clean your body out. And so when you're doing the stretches, the technique that you usually do kind of like some quick breaths, like, and then you hold it and you like stretch or do whatever stretch you're gonna do, and you like focus on the region that is in pain when you're doing your stretch. And what they've actually been able to we're going to do a whole freaking episode on just the Wim Hof method, so we can show you all the data and everything. This is the first podcast, so we're just getting started. You know,
we're getting a little excited here, but
we're going everywhere in this podcast because we're just trying to get it figured out, and
we're finding our voice here.
Exactly, we're finding our voice here, and so yeah, you do that. And then, of course, after the stretches with combination yoga, some exercises, we'll go into the whole method. We'll even do it with you on live. And after that, you go and do a cold shower. Okay, but you want to work up to the cold shower. But we'll get into all this, so don't just go off what we said. If you want to do it, go on YouTube, go watch a video. They'll be able to.
They have great ones on there.
Exactly, they'll be able to explain it a lot better than we are here because we're really not structured right now. But we're going to make a video on how to do it, and we're going to give Wim Hof all his credit because that guy has changed my life and he's changed the lives of countless others. So now I think we should go into the video, just kind of see. So we went into Lake Superior. And this was in, February?
Yeah, so we'll just play this video. It'll be about an 8-minute video. Watch however much you want.
Watch however much you want.
If you're watching this on YouTube, you can skip ahead to the good parts.
We got to take a break here and kind of critique ourselves.
It's important to just kind of witness. It seems we're not trying to look like tough guys here. We're just trying to show you that it's
what you can do.
What you can do, and it's like I used to be not a very confident person, and especially when it came to physically intensive things, and this is actually quite intensive and very cold. It is quite painful in a sense, and we'll talk about it after the video's done rolling. But let's just head into the Wim Hof video of this was earlier this winter, and here you go.
right, and we are back.
All right, so we're back.
That was our video. We did that. That was when we got done. Like it looks kind of easy on the video because we're drowning out some of the noise that we're making and the screams that are that we're doing when we're in complete pain because the water's so freaking cold. Mm-hmm. Like it's hard to walk after that.
Like when you come out of the water, you're just completely numb. Your body's completely numb, and like that's when you have to be very careful because your body's numb. You're not damaging it yet. Like frostbite takes anywhere, depending on the temperature, but like if it's between 0 to 32 degrees, like frostbite can take anywhere between a minute and 5 minutes. And so it's like you have to be very quick and that you dry yourself off. You gotta, make sure you get your clothing on so you can start harboring start building up the heat that exists. Because part of the Wim Hof and the stretching, you begin to know how to like control the sort of circulation in your body, and you can actually feel the blood pulsing through. Where it's like, when you're so cold, like everything contracts, right? Like first you get goosebumps, and then your body naturally
the blood will rush to your core.
Yeah, your body naturally constricts the blood vessels in your extremities to kind of hold it all in your core. But as soon as you know how to like sort of you breathe and use like your muscle movements and you just sort of pulse the body, it's you're doing it voluntarily. It's like your parasympathetic nervous system, it seems like you almost trick it. Like it's like it only wants to work to a certain extent, and then it hands over control to you. And it's like what you have to be ready and you have to be responsible for when that happens. And that's what's so just energizing and just beautiful about the feeling. It's like it's cold and it's suffering, but like that's where you exists. It's like you can take this is actually
to be okay with it.
This is a quote from Viktor Frankl, who was a survivor in the Holocaust, and
he wrote Man's Search for Meaning.
Yep, Man's Search for Meaning, and one of his quotes is that and I'm kind of sort of paraphrasing here. I don't know the exact one. I guess we could pull up the exact one, but it's like you can take everything away from a man. You can subject him to so much pain and suffering, but like you can't take away a man's right or a man's ability to choose his own way. And so it's like no matter your circumstance, no matter how oppressive the world seems, or how oppressive even the government seems, it's like you have the ability to choose your own way and choose the focus and where you put that energy. And it's like why do you have to get so worked up about all this, all the conspiracy and the government conspiring against you? It's like I get worked up because it's important. But I'm still living though. I'm still happy. I don't wake up every day and just like fuck, shit. I'm the CIA. They're listening to me in the walls. It's like no. It's like if you are in that state of mind, if you're just like thinking that everything's out to get you, that the government's spying on you, it's like they are. Deal with it. It's like take back your sovereignty. Don't just succumb into your little your don't just implode on yourself in your. And yourself, go forth out into the world and take back, your freedom.
So we got Viktor Frankl's quote here, and you were pretty good. Everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms: to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. Mm-hmm. Another one is when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. Right, and that's key. We cannot do anything right now about our government except for maybe vote and hope that the people that we vote in aren't just lying to us. Okay, but what we can do is control our own lives and make ourselves happy and make ourselves strong. We can do this. There's so many ways we can free ourselves from our own beliefs. We can free ourselves from other people's beliefs, and truly be a child once again, and really see the mystery of the world. I think that one of the best things, is children, right? Because they're so innocent and they don't know anything, but they're just so lost in the wonder of everything, and they're so happy and they're content. Well, of course, if they're fed, and especially if they're fed, right? But that's just we have to satisfy these basic needs of ourselves, but we have to be willing to realize our own ignorance.
We also have to make sure we're standing up and finding ways to create opportunity for those who aren't aren't necessarily born into the sort of structured, sort of safe environment that most people are born into, at least in the United States.
Yeah, at least.
And
in
it's
the
like,
United States.
and then the liberal virtue signal will come in. It's like, not everybody's born into the a safe family. Not everybody's born into a safe community. It's like, okay, why is that? Why? It's because it has everything to do with the culture that exists in these communities. It has everything to do with the culture that exists in other countries that doesn't look at the individual as being the most responsible, doesn't give them the opportunity to be responsible, and it has everything to do with the aims at which the culture desires to achieve. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's like, in America, it's like, yeah, we kind of have some fucked up history, and we kind of have some shit happen, but like the way you figure it out is through dialogue. It is through it's through, I guess, taking a step back and letting the decisions being made. Let the decisions be made through objective, I guess, objective speech. And it's like, well, what do you mean by that? I don't necessarily know. But what I do know is that when I speak in debate or discuss with other people, you're exploring territory that it just completely is out of
I think in order to
it's like, oh, I didn't really think of it like that, or oh, I didn't really
right. So I think that in order to engage in the dialogue that you're talking about, like both of you have to be willing to accept that that you might be wrong, right? I mean, for the most part. We say things that we think are true, but we don't, if a lot of people think, they'll say something true, but they're open to the idea that they could be wrong. Well, it's like, if you're going to be an honest person, like, why would you ever say anything, if you're trying to be honest, if you're trying to be truthful, why would you ever say anything that could be wrong, right? I mean, and that's obviously really hard to do. Like, you can't just, you can't be perfect in filtering everything you say, so that the only things that you say are true. Like, it's very hard to do.
It seems like we make like assumption, we make presuppositions exactly. Like almost automatically.
Mm-hmm. We have to.
So we have to like sort of, I guess, like when we make presuppositions, right? When we make assumptions about something, it definitely guides our discussion, mm-hmm. right? It definitely creates a platform for us to I guess, sort of unpack or disperse of an idea, but like how do we sort of be objective about those presuppositions? What I mean?
It's not easy to do. It's really not easy to do.
It's
but I think
hard.
that, but what back to the civil discourse, right? The idea of like an interlocutor, like both parties have to be willing to be in the pursuit of truth, okay? And therefore, in order to be in the pursuit of truth, you have to be willing to dispense with some of your presuppositions. Right? Because you can't just like, oh, I'm right, I know I'm right. No. Because you have to be, if you want to engage in civil discourse, you have to be willing to listen to the other person and see things from their perspective. And that's really hard to do. But you have to be willing to, cope with the fact that you could be wrong, right? And I think that's when like true, genuine conversation can come out of two people. And I think that's the key, that's like the framework that we need, as people who are, people who have disagreements. That's the framework that is required for us to come to a common conclusion about the way that things should be, So, yeah, I think.
So when we establish a way of something should be, how do we determine the goal of it? You know what I mean? Like, why would we say, so if we're gonna discuss or we're going to create a new policy or we're gonna change this part of government or culture, what are the sort of motivations behind it, do you think?
Yeah, I think we do have to look at like our motivations, I think. Mm-hmm. I think that's a big one, right? Because we all have desire, we all have things that we want in life. Mm-hmm. But we're all humans, right? It's not like our desires can be that different. Maybe we have different ideas about how to get there, but I think in the end, like, the Immanuel Kant thing is, God, immortality, and
freedom.
And freedom, right?
Those postulates.
I think those three things, like, are what most people really want. Like, nobody wants to be, in chains.
Yeah, like even
everybody
the most
wants to live to be as old as they can, and everybody wants meaning. You know, whether you find meaning in God or not, it's arbitrary. But like, just like everybody wants like a sense of meaning, like they mean something in the world, like they belong in the world.
I think that's an important distinction. It's like, you know, it's like even an atheist to their core, it's like they probably want God, immortality, and freedom to exist. And the ones that don't, it's like, well, if you don't want freedom to exist, does that mean you don't want to be responsible for your actions? If you don't want immortality to exist, it's like, oh, are you just nihilistic and just, you know, just want everything to be done with eventually because you can't handle the suffering that is life? Or you don't want God to exist because you don't want somebody, you know, it's like, well, I guess then it depends on, you know, what you determine God is, or how do you you know, who is God? Is he omnipotent? Is he, you know, omniscient? Is he
he or she? Maybe she's black,
or it, or you know what I mean? It's like, you know, like how do you even address it? It's like you can't. It's like that's the point. It's like so it's like, you know, you want something to exist, but you also don't know in any shape or form. It's like, well, what the hell would it be? And it's like, well, you could just have a hope that it loves you for who you are. It sort of, you know, it's sort of impartial to the group or the identity that you hold, and it just, and, you know, and it only sees and observes you, and it's like, well, let's not go down that rabbit hole.
Oh boy, yeah, you know. But I think that those three things, it's like meaning, freedom, and, you know, living as long as you can, mortality. Like that's this Kant, right?
Yeah,
you know,
Kant,
but we all do kind of, you know, whatever, you know, happiness, you know, purpose, or that's also meaning, you know, success. I mean, but all of these are pretty freaking empty terms in my opinion, because like you can't really just, I mean, you can look like at a definition of that and say, oh, that sounds pretty good, but like you really boil it down, it's like, can you really associate success with like a state of being? Like, can you really do that? Like, what success is kind of arbitrary. It's like people have different ideas about success, right?
You sure do.
Like one thing that I remember seeing, it was so let's say you have a guy in New York who makes $150,000 a year. Okay, that's pretty good. And then you have a guy who makes $30,000 a year, but he lives in, say,
Arkansas or something.
No, not even Arkansas, like some like other country where 30 grand is a lot.
Oh, okay.
So like, you know, a guy in New York, he can go out to a nice dinner and he has to spend $200, but he also has to pay a ridiculous amount of rent to live in that city.
Oh, yeah.
But the guy who only makes $30,000 a year, who lives in, say, you know, India or someplace,
sure.
You know, he can go out to a nice dinner and spend $20. He can go out to a nice dinner, or he can stay at a nice hotel, you know, and pay, you know, a fifth as much as the guy in New York. Who's more rich? Who's more successful? One guy's living a lot, and also let's say the guy who has $150,000 a year is working 80 hours a week, making $36 an hour. Okay, so and then the guy who is making 30 grand a year makes like over $60 an hour, let's say, right? And but he's only working,
but he works much less hours,
much less.
Let's say, yeah. Like
so he's only working maybe 4 hours a week, let's say, right? Who's more rich? One guy has a hell of a lot more time. One guy can get a lot more bang for his buck. One guy has more money, but you know, what does that mean?
Yeah, how much time did he spend to actually acquire that
sort
of standard of living?
Is the man who has $150,000 more free? So you have to be willing to like really like look at yourself and say, okay, just because you're not a millionaire does not mean you're any less successful than somebody who has $1 million.
You're
not any less successful. It's all a point of view. You can structure your life so that you can work less and get more out of what.
But I will say that, and I'm coming at it again from the Kantian view, it's that, you know, you have to sort of, in order for these certain things to be to work, the sort of postulates, you know, to determine success. Like if we're going to have, you know, obviously it's everybody's subjective, or everybody will have their own subjective view on what success is to them. But like, shouldn't we have an objective sort of common sense for what success is? Because like, shouldn't you encourage people to live up to the talents that exist within them? Shouldn't you actually be pushing other people to sort of not, you know, It's like if somebody's really good at let's say math or something, but you know they will make more money doing something else, and they choose that, but they're not going to be as good at it. It's like, you know, it's a very, I guess it's very hard to make the distinction. It's like, you know, if people are more motivated by the money they want to make, it's like sometimes that can be, I guess, sort of, it could steer you in the direction away from your actual strengths.
It does,
because you're sort of abstracting the aim that you have in your mind and seeking purely a desire rather than a rationally, you know, functioning, I guess, framework that you place around yourself for society. It's like,
so
you know, who's more valuable?
So let's look at it this way, like, you know, depression and suicide are actually kind of, you know, a privilege of the upper class. You know, to say privilege is kind of ridiculous, but it is. You know, people in America have much higher suicide rates than people in Africa. Why?
Yeah,
Why?
That is actually a fact.
It's a different point of view. Okay, we have these ideas about what success and what happiness and what meaning and what, you know, goodness are in America, and they have completely different ideas about that in Africa. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't, you know, that everything's relative and that there isn't some objective good that we should all be aiming for. I'm not saying that. I'm not a moral relativist at all in the slightest sense. But what I am saying is that, you know, if you can change your point of view, you can live a happier life. That's why you cannot be, you know, constrained in your beliefs and in your presuppositions about things. Because if you compare yourself to other people, it's like, oh, you know, I'm lower class, you know, I'm not, I can't, I'm not a millionaire like this guy.
Is inherently stacked against.
And let me tell you, social media is terrible because it lets you see, you know, just the most amazing parts of like certain people's lives, and it makes you really self-critical. It's like, wow, this person's, you know, at the Bahamas and he only has pictures of him doing amazing things. Well, guess what? His life probably isn't like that. He just takes snapshots of the coolest parts. Okay? Yeah. And so quit comparing yourself to that. Quit doing it.
Well, also, I love the topic of social media. It's like people like post all this stuff on there, like, you know, all about their life and like all this stuff that to their, let's say, only 1,000 followers. It's like, you know, you act as if you're a public figure, but you don't actually reap the benefits or the sort of responsibilities that you have as being one. And so it's like it's just purely based on ego inflation, I guess. And it's like, you know, and I'm careful when I say that because, you know, it's like, yeah, we're live right now in social media and all over these different other platforms. Right. It's like, you know,
we're hypocrites.
Maybe we're hypocrite in that, but it's like, you know, I don't want it to be, you know, necessarily just an ego inflation of myself, because I'm going to be saying things on here that will may deflate it. Maybe it will give more of a negative opinion about myself. But you know what? That's how I want to think. I want to be able to be sort of controversial or I guess confrontational, because to me that's how I'm going to that's what's going to change my mind. If somebody's out there and saying, you know, hey, you said this, that's wrong, and here's why. Rather than, you're wrong, you're this label, and therefore you should shut up, you should be silenced, you shouldn't have speech, therefore you need to go back in your shell and not, you know, and not project on anybody else because you're an oppressive being. It's like, shut up. I mean, yeah, okay, you can say that. But you know what? I still can say.
You're just doing the same thing he is.
Yeah, but then they're attacking. It's like, yeah, they'll attack me, but then they'll also like ban him. You know, silence him. You know, we need a rule on this. We need to ban hate speech. We need to do this, and this. It's like no. We all be able to need to talk, and you know, you can hurl insults at me all you want, but it's like I hope at least my intention isn't to insult anybody. My intention is not to bring anybody down. Like, I really want to bring the world up in some sense, you know. Like, at least for me, I want to at least have a positive impact where it's like I made some people think a little bit outside the box, or they're like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe there is a different perspective. It's like, yeah, we all do have our own perspective on this world, but like, come on, like we got to be able to learn from one another, and we also have to keep, you know, we still have to hold on to the principles that, you know, make our being so easy. It's like, and it's like it's so easy for you because you're a white male. It's like, what?
How do you know?
It's like, how do you know?
It's like, well, they're saying, well, you don't know, but like, I don't know either. Well, like, oh, we both don't know. Great.
Yeah, great.
Okay, now we can talk.
Yeah, exactly. Now we can talk. It's like, jeez. It's like,
I don't know what it's like to be you. You don't know what it's like to be me. So quit making presuppositions, and I'll quit doing it too. And then we can have a discourse and actually engage in trying to find truth about reality, rather than just completely, shutting each other out based off of our own ridiculous, notions that neither of us understand what it's like to be the other person. Well, we're getting pretty long here. This was a pretty good first run, I would have to say.
We went all over the place, I would say.
We did go. I think we're gonna try to make it more structured. We're gonna try to engage with our audience first, but even reading some of the comments now, it's like I don't even want to engage with like a good amount because.
And there's a
lot of trolls.
Ridiculous
like,
amount of trolls tonight.
Like,
which is
I didn't even think that happened at this level.
Like,
first podcast.
Trolling is fun. Like, trolling is fun. But like, to troll the little guys like us, it's like you're not. There's the only you're only provoking us, and it's like cool. But like I feel like it's
actually give me criticism.
Yeah, actually give me criticism to actually help the podcast.
Because if you can give me criticism, say there are a good amount of people who are saying we're really quiet, so we're gonna work on that. Like, give us criticism. Say, oh, you guys are being ignorant because you're saying this, and give me a reason.
There was actually recently like I actually kind of want to go through a couple comments.
Yeah, let's reply to some of these. That's what we should do at the end of the podcast. We'll just reply to some of these.
Yeah. Let's see. You just compared black people to animals on land reserves, right?
Okay,
we were comparing everybody, and we were also speaking in the sort of dialectic that LBJ was. So that I guess maybe you came in right as that happened.
Mm-hmm. You probably yeah.
But wait, who was that quote from? I guess.
Which one?
They'll have the quote that they'll have blacks voting Democrat for the next.
Well, that was supposedly from Lyndon B. Johnson. I remember seeing that in a documentary about the Democratic Party. Okay. I think it was actually Hillary's America, but Dinesh D'Souza. I haven't validated that. That's just something I've heard.
Dinesh D'Souza, yeah. That was actually from one of his.
So that's where I got that, and that's why I said, I don't actually know if this is true, but I heard, right, because I don't know it's true. I actually wasn't there when he said it, and so even if I read something on the internet, it's not like I actually know for certain that
African Americans, not blacks. It's like, okay, I mean,
we can make the distinction.
I don't want to sort of marginalize groups. I don't want to divide it up. But like, if we're speaking in the dialectic that they were. Where in the 1960s, that's what they did.
I think he was actually talking to the guy who.
I
think that the guy was actually talking to the guy who accused us of, comparing black people to.
Well, it's the same animals. Guy that said the same thing. Same user.
Oh, okay, never mind. All right.
So it's like, those are good criticism. Maybe we should be careful in what we say, but it's like African Americans, blacks. It's like,
okay, but it's like even when you say a white person,
I don't know what you mean by that.
There are empty terms. So when we say somebody say some color, like a white person, what do you mean by that? What do you mean, Northern Indians? Have you seen a Northern Indian? They're pretty white, right? Caucasians, Norwegians, Scandinavians. Who are you talking about? Like albinos? They're white. There's black. There's African albinos. So when we say it like that, it is a broad generalization, and it's kind of stupid, right?
Yeah, it is.
But the distinction is that we're saying people, right? Because they are people, right? They're humans, okay? So that's why we just have to really work on dispensing with some of these stupid generalizations, because they just divide people apart and make people pissed at each other, and it's just stupid. Yeah. Come on.
All right, and then is there a dial in the number?
I think we will do that. Yeah,
actually, we'll have live. Yeah, we'll have live.
Is there a some guy asked, is there a dial-in number that I can use to ask a few questions? And this guy's name is Trump has a small peepee, so we might not want to talk to him.
Yeah, it's questionable.
But I guess freedom of speech. Hey, we're willing to listen to people, and I actually think that would be a great filler. I think we will do that.
Also, get through college and then be mad at the world. Y'all haven't.
We're not mad at the world
yet.
We love the world. Yeah, we love it. We are so engaged in it. We're not mad at the world. We're just talking about it.
And I think it's get through college first. I mean, that's okay, but you do realize college has a direct effect on the actual modern society. So it's what starts in college, what happens there, all these safe spaces, all this stuff, all these people that are being indoctrinated in institutions are going to be running the world one day. And so, like, we're trying to give you a glimpse inside that sort of perspective that we have, because people are literally being completely cognitive dissonance to the perspective of the college student, because there's millions of people in this country that go to college, excuse me, and then once they come out, they are projecting the indoctrinated beliefs that were, that are basically uploaded to them in these institutions. And it's risky.
Listen,
you need
get through college. Hey, if you don't go to college, you might be better off than a college kid nowadays, honestly. Because you have a lot of these liberal arts degrees that are just completely useless, completely brainwashing you. You know, I think the only degrees that are really going to teach anybody to do anything are the degrees that teach you how to manage a business, how to actually do some science. You know, STEM, business management. Like once you start getting into the liberal arts, it's like oh man, okay. Maybe there's some value in that. At least there used to be, but now it's just completely, just indoctrination. It's so left wing. We'll get into more of that.
Okay, whatever.
You guys are banning me. What is that?
I don't even know how to.
Obviously, you can respect or not respect whomever you would like, but don't to put down others is just rude.
I think they're speaking up here.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Benji. Shout out to Benji. Shout out Benji. Shout out Nick, shout out Zobek, shout out, anybody who I know that watched. I don't know everybody's username yet. We're going to upload this to YouTube, and so hopefully we'll get some more feedback then.
Yeah, what are the papers? Do you have any drinks in those cups?
The papers?
Oh, the papers behind us? Those are, we got the Declaration of Independence.
We got the Gettysburg Address.
Yeah, Declaration.
And we got the Constitution.
Constitution, Declaration, Bill of Rights, and the Gettysburg Address, you said? Okay. Yep. And then the American flag, of course.
Yeah, of course, American flag. We got a bunch of books back here, and we'll probably get into some of these things.
We're drinking tea.
Yeah, we're drinking tea. We're actually not degenerates drinking. I'm not kidding. I'm not hating on people drinking alcohol. Come on.
We're not degenerates drinking alcohol.
Yeah, we're not. Yeah, no.
We're not getting hammered, slam-faced on the fucking...
Maybe we should do that sometime. Just for fun. Probably not, though.
So we take an oath to protect the people, not the country. If the country is a harm to the people, we defend the people. I took this oath.
Must be a veteran.
Thank you. I mean,
thank you for your service. The Josh Brown. Yep. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. So
be engaging.
Took the oath to protect the people, not the country. If the country is a harm to the people, we defend the people. Well, I hope so, but is that the reality?
A lot of people in the intelligence agencies, like the people who are involved in MK Ultra, right? They took the oath in order to serve in the United States military, but they definitely did some illegal things against the people. But you know what? It's the National Security Act that is screwing everybody over who takes that oath, because they can be imprisoned and seized without any warrant, without any due process, because it's a threat to national security. And that's a big issue today, and we'll get into that in a future podcast.
Yep. We don't blindly follow commands like robots.
I don't think anybody does, but when you're threatened, when your life is threatened, I don't know if I would be the first one to stand up to that kind of authority. Quiet. All right. Well, we got through a good amount of these comments here. We won't take too much of your time anymore.
So here's the last one.
Oh, what's the?
Yeah. The problem here is that I can listen to someone like Ben Shapiro make the same arguments but articulate it better. Their competitive edge is solely in engaging the audience, but they are not doing it. So you're saying so these people engage their audience more. So yeah, I mean, we're not going to claim to be at their level, not even close. I mean, Ben Shapiro, he does amazing work. I mean, he has a very good website. He is a freaking madman when it comes to just articulating a message. He's so concise, so articulate, and so it's just direct. And
we actually met Ben Shapiro.
We actually.
And let me tell you, he's like really quick. Wow, that guy.
Quick on the wit. It's insane. We don't claim to be that good.
We'd like to get there, maybe.
We'd like to be there because he does a lot of good. And so we want to try to be at that level too, and we want to try to be responsible and have that sort of I guess.
Oh, like we got some guy that can connect. U.S. was 39 in suicide. Well, I guess we're disinformation. I'm gonna Google that, figure out if that's true or not. Suicide rates
among young males
by
like
country.
people by country, but I think it matters between the ages of 18 to 26 or whatever the statistic is.
Sri Lanka, jeez. Okay, yeah. So there are some
there are some
countries that African countries that have higher suicide rates.
Oh wow, interesting.
Where's the United States?
We have to realize this is Wikipedia.
Oh yeah. I mean
who knows how many it's compiling?
Yeah, maybe we can find something else, huh?
Data is important. I mean, Wikipedia is decent, definitely.
Business Insider, huh? I trust them more, huh? South Korea. South Korea is South Korea is very.
Wow.
South Korea is
a
very well-doing country. Russia's pretty high. China.
Interesting.
Where's the United States? Well, okay, so I don't see Sri Lanka, Latvia, Ukraine, Moldova, Slovenia, Finland, Belgium, Poland, Uruguay, Montenegro, Estonia, France, Switzerland, Croatia, Czech Republic.
United States.
Yeah, actually, I don't see any African countries in this list above.
Trinidad and Tobago.
Why don't you change it to the screen here?
Sure.
Is that working?
Yep.
Okay, yeah. So here we got the countries. This is a Business Insider. This seems to be the chart that they're listing here. So you got Lithuania, South Korea. Tell me if you see any African countries, because that's what he said. He said the suicide rates in the United States are higher than that in Africa. Okay, but we're comparing a continent to a country, so it's a little bit of an absurd statement. But from what I'm seeing, you don't have any African countries above the United States at all, actually. Yeah, so I think what we said was pretty accurate. And these are 2010, 2000.
Interesting.
Yeah. Well, anyways. Oh yeah. See. Look at this map. So, yeah. Look at this. Come on. Well, suicide seems to be kind of a privilege of Eastern civilizations. Interesting.
Yeah. It's
wow.
Ouch. Yeah.
Jeez. Oh, I suppose actually we don't even know. There's no data on Africa, so I suppose that's just kind of a.
Oh wow. Yeah. There is.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe what we said was completely wrong.
Huh.
Yeah, it's very. Why is Lithuania so high? And South Korea, man. Interesting.
I mean, it's definitely a culture. It's definitely it sort of infects cultures and depression and all this stuff. And it's
suicide.
There's no way. There's no easy solution. There's no just declaration this is why. That's very an ignorant thing to say. Is oh, this is why we are seeing this increase. But you can definitely point to comparison. You can definitely be well.
Okay. So let's just look at this. Look at this is kind of so obviously black people mostly from Africa, right? Although also you have African Americans, etc. But Asian, Pacific Islander, you have white people are pretty high up here, rates by suicide and ethnicity. So it's and in general in America at least I don't want to make broad generalizations about people because obviously people can go to any demographic. They can be in any income level regardless of what race they are. But if you just look at the statistics, they show wow, okay, you have a disproportionate amount of white people killing themselves in proportion to black and Hispanic people. So hey, maybe black and Hispanic people have it figured out, man. Maybe they have it way more figured out than us because why are white people killing themselves at such high rates? That's crazy. And it seems it's just going up. Why are people getting so depressed and just, downtrodden? What is AIAN?
I think one thing we contribute, though, is, you have a responsibility. You can have meaning. You have freedom. So it's that's I feel as at least a core tenet of the freedom framework is empowering the individual, empowering your ability to have, personal responsibility, direction in your life, and being able to be heard, and like, you know, not being shut down or told, you know, oh, you can't be sad because you're privileged.
Jeez.
It's like, no, you can be heard, you can be sad, you can seek help from others, but ultimately the sort of it lies within yourselves. It's like I don't know. It's really hard to say anything, and it's like, obviously you can get into this standpoint epistemology, like, oh, since you don't know somebody who's committed suicide or attempted suicide, or if you haven't experienced depression yourself, you can't have an objective, or you can't have a subjective view.
So like when you're 85 or older, like you're more likely to commit suicide. It's like, geez,
85 or
85, older? And then you have underneath that you have 75 to 84. So it seems like the older you are, the more likely you are to commit suicide. Yeah, I mean, some people just can't figure it out. But like, I mean, the statistics are pretty clear from what I can find. You know, I guess we won't take any as much more of your time. We kind of want to end it here, so let's switch back to the camera and say a fair goodbye. We'll try to get this to be more fluent, you know, as we progress in our abilities with doing this. Also, you know, trying to not scatterbrain everywhere. That's just kind of how our brains work, I think.
Oh, yeah. It's like ADHD gone mad.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you're just bouncing all over the place, and that's I think, directly attributed to just our fixation on just, like, you know, serotonin hit after serotonin hit. Like, if you pull out our phone and we're just like, and, you know,
it's novelty. It's novelty.
Like
constant stimulation.
Like, we're just trying to give you a view into the modern college kid and the sort of the mindset, you know, that, you know, you're sort of driven into because of the culture that sort of surrounds it. It's like, if you're not on social media, it's like, who are you? It's like, oh, if you don't have a play page, oh, can I add you on Snapchat? Oh, you know, can I follow you on Instagram? It's like, and if you don't have it, it's, and then they're like, oh, you know, they don't know how to fucking have a conversation. It's like, it's weird. And if you start talking about freedom, or you talk about responsibility, like,
oh, don't talk to me. I just want to go party.
I just want to have a good time, man. I just want to party, dude. Why you gotta talk about real stuff? It's like, because life is real. Because I'm actually interested in what you're doing with your life. I'm actually interested in you know, what you have to say. How about let's have a conversation? And it's like, oh, whatever. And like, even when you're in school, it's like you try to talk about it, and they just sit there and listen. Like, they're like,
or no, what it is like when you try to actually engage people in conversation, they look at their phone.
Yeah, they'll be like, you'll be in mid conversation, they'll just be like,
oh, wait, what? What'd you say?
Wait, what? Yeah, man.
Oh,
yeah,
dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. It's like, we need to pay attention to each other, okay?
Yeah.
We're like, people are way more interesting than your freaking phone. Like, come on.
Yeah.
I'm sick and tired of, you know, going into social situations and people are just like, you know, so brainwashed with their phones, looking at their phones all the time. Like, there isn't something more, like, there isn't a grander reality outside of that freaking device that causes you brain cancer and emits radiation and kills you. It's a freaking parasite.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, it's definitely
we'll get into that too. We'll get into that. Like, we'll look at some studies. Like, there's all kinds of stuff. Mm-hmm. But you know, on that note, me and Trevor,
it's like, you know, this was an adventure. It's definitely the first one. Like, here we go. Like, we're in it. You know, hopefully we'll just get better from here.
We'll keep doing it.
And of course, you know, you're gonna look, you know, a year from now or 2 years from now, they're gonna look back on this first video, the second video, or whatever, and they're gonna be like, you know,
I hope they see how stupid we are and how we've advanced. Yeah, exactly. And, you know, like, what's possible.
It's like, the whole point of this is like to find a voice and to find, you know, how to become, you know, more informed and more articulate. You know, we're not trying to manipulate. We're not trying to, you know, beat. I guess we kind of are beating around the bush, but it's like, you know, we want to like, I guess, explore it in the public, like, and fully in the platform, rather than just, you know, hiding behind a screen, hiding behind, you know, social media posts and just, like, you know, rage posts or shit posts or whatever you want to call them, or like people who just hide behind Twitter or whatever. It's like, no, we want to be in your face. We want to be like with you. We want to be engaged. You know, we want to be, you know, using the power of our voice and the power of the word to, like, just like explore ourselves, explore the world, explore solutions to society, to the world, because You know, if we had it figured out, things wouldn't be as tumultuous as we see them. You know, our politics wouldn't be as divisive as it would be if we actually had it figured out already. It's like the intention isn't to figure it out; it's to figure out, you know, the best platform,
the best way,
forward,
the best framework to free yourself. And on that note, let's end it.
Yeah.
Peace out. Thank you.
Have a good one. Thank you for tuning in.